Get your back hip into it.
And now it's time for football.
Yes, sir.
Enid Plainsmen football with Steve and Steve.
Good. Great.
The Enid Plainsmen kicked off the 2017 football season last Friday night with a home opener win over the Guthrie Blue Jays by a score of 34-23. It was the first time the Plainsmen opened up with the win since 2014, I should say, and I believe it was since 2010 to have this win over Guthrie. Mm-hmm. Sporting new uniforms, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The Plainsmen scored on their first two possessions of the ball game, led 14-0, and at the half, I believe it was 28-3. However, there were some injuries in the ball game that we'll address here in our show today. But overall, Coach Hayes, big win. Welcome to Plainsman football with Steve and Steve, 34-23. Your overall assessment and comments of the big win?
Well, going into it, we knew it was going to be a tough, hard-fought physical game, and it definitely proved to be that. Really proud of the kids, the way they came out ready. The first drive of the game was a 95-yard touchdown drive, 12 plays, which is, to do that for the first drive of the season, to execute as well as we did, is pretty remarkable. And then to go down and score on the second drive after we lose Will to a leg injury on the first play and still finish the drive and score and still have 567 yards of offense for the night, 357 yards rushing. Probably 230 of it after Will got hurt is pretty amazing and quite a testament to our kids. One of the kids that played a big role in that, you're going to meet here in a little bit, Marlo Hughes. He had 210 yards rushing as really the third running back in the game. And we had our backup got hurt as well. And so just really proud of our kids, how tough they were and how they didn't allow anything to prevent them from having success. There were some excuses to maybe stumble, and they overcame those excuses and chose to win anyway. And so a great outing.
And sometimes when an injury takes place in a ball game, it just kind of changes momentum. Things just change. There's something in the air, and it just, it just kind of changes. So you've got to be pleased with the mental toughness of your team picking up and going forward.
Well, and there's a real interesting sequence after Will got hurt. He got hurt on a long run, made it down to probably about the 10-yard line, and then we proceed to get a holding penalty, and we're facing a second and goal basically from the 20-yard line, and we go in and score. And that was big. There was a whole lot of adversity that got dealt to us there in that 2-minute period, and our kids overcame it and just picked up and kept moving, and real testament to the mental toughness of our team and to our preparation. I'm not sure a year ago we would have handled that as well. I think we've really grown in the off season.
Now, do you grade like A, B, C, D, E, F, or not E?
Yeah.
I think I've had an E on a test before. Do you grade different positions or say offense, defense?
We do. We grade hustle, and then we grade assignment, and we award players of the game based on their game grade. It isn't that you're the running back that got 200 yards. It's, hey, you got the best overall grade of anybody in offense. You're the player of the game. For example, Marlo, we'll bring him in here in a minute. He got 100% on his hustle grade, which is rare, and he got a 92% on his game grade. So he had obviously a great night on offense, knowing what to do and doing it full speed.
Well, again, a big win for the Plainsmen as they win their home opener over at Guthrie Blue Jays, 34-23. And we're just excited about, I know you're overall excited about just the success, of course, the outcome of the score, but just the success, as you said, the effort. And I think I read a quote that perhaps you were really pleased with the balanced effort on offense and defense, that you're a balanced team. Explain to the viewers, what do you mean by that?
I think we outplayed them in every aspect of the game. We outplayed them on offense, defense, and vastly outplayed them in special teams, in my opinion. They had several special teams error that really could have made the game much a bigger blowout than it was. Defensively, we had several 3-and-outs. Where we got them off the field. In the second half, we played pretty well most of the time. We made a lot of critical discipline errors on third down that extended drives and allowed them to score. Every touchdown drive they had in the second half was a byproduct of us making a poor decision on defense, whether it be a pass interference or a late hit on the quarterback, something like that on third down, that allowed them to extend drives that were basically over at that point until we gave them another first down. And so we've got to get those cleaned up. Offensively, kind of the same thing in second half as well. We drove down to the 1-inch line, literally, and then turned the ball over on a snap. And then, had another opportunity for a wide open touchdown pass in the end zone where we had a procedure penalty on one of the receivers. Those are the type of things we didn't do in the first half that we have to clean up going forward. And you know, I'm really excited because for the first game of the year, we played well. We played like a team that was well prepared, but we still have a lot of room for improvement. I think we can play much better than even we did at that point.
Thank you for joining us today for Plainsman Football 2017, the Football Coaches Show with Steve and Steve Kime, along with Coach Steve Hayes. And again, we're just really pleased this year in our partnership, the City of Enid, with Enid Public Schools, to provide you the show. Coach, you give us your overall comments or observations of the ball game. We're getting ready, since this is the first show, to show the game highlights. Mm-hmm. What are some of the highlights that we're going to see on tape here in just a few moments?
You're going to see Marlo Hughes make a 76-yard touchdown run, which was big because they had just scored to cut the lead, and we answered immediately in 2 plays, capped off by that run. You're also going to see a play where Marlo throws an interception, but then runs down the guy that picked off the ball, forces a strip fumble, and we get the ball back 1st and 10. Amazing hustle play. You're going to see several 3 great plays by the defense, just really shutting, for the most part, Guthrie's offense down for the night.
Very good. Again, thank you for joining us for the Plainsman Football. Let's take this time right now to see the highlights of the ball game with Enid Plainsmen and the Guthrie Blue Jays. Welcome back to Plainsman Football with Steve and Steve. Coach, new uniforms. You told me in a kind of a secret a week or 2 ago that you were going to pull a surprise, and it had to do with uniforms. I didn't say a word. As a Boy Scout, you know, I did not say a word. I guess it was a big surprise.
Yeah, everybody did a good job keeping it a secret. We unveiled it after our practice on Thursday. They walked off the field and they walked into the locker room. Our equipment manager, Marv Hanna, had them hanging up in their locker, and it was quite a celebration. It was pretty exciting. These are uniforms that kids in the off-season, based on their off-season performance, were allowed to vote on. And so these are things that they helped design and pick themselves, and so it made it even more special for the kids.
Very good. Mm-hmm. Very good. The Daily Oklahoman had a preseason poll for really all the classes of football, high school football here in Oklahoma. And, Coach, I saw that the Enid Plainsmen preseason ranking was number 10 in 6A Class 2. Mm-hmm. I guess I say officially 2.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that? I know it's just a line item in the newspaper, but it's got to be exciting to see the recognition.
Yeah, it's nice to be recognized. I want that ranking. I want a positive ranking at the end of the year. I'd like to be number 1 when the season's over. So it's neat, but I kind of take it with a grain of salt, honestly.
Okay.
We just beat Ponca.
I understand.
Beat Ponca, yes, sir.
Well, I'm very excited to introduce our student athlete of the week in just a few moments. And before we bring this young man on our studio set, let's meet other members of Plainsman Football.
Matthew Clark, number 8. I play wide receiver and corner, class of 2019.
My name is Troy Herrera. I'm number 54. I play linebacker, sophomore year.
My name is Ivey Mays. I'm number 44. I play linebacker, and I'm a senior.
Trey Penix, 28, wide receiver, sophomore.
My name is Preacher Alec, number 71, defensive lineman, class of 2018.
Welcome back to Plainsmen Football with Steve and Steve. And one of my favorite segments of our show is when we get to introduce to you and to me Student Athlete of the Week. Would you welcome to the studio this morning Marlo Hughes, sporting jersey number 26. Marlo, you had a rather exciting game. I guess you go into the game focusing on defense, but all of a sudden your number gets called to say, hey, we need you to run the ball 76 yards to score for us.
Yes,
so
sir.
you had a little role reversal. Well, anyway, welcome to the show, and Coach Hayes got a few questions for you.
Sure.
Marlo, you've been a starter now for 3 years. Kind of tell the audience what positions you've played over the last 3 years.
Over the last 3 years, my positions as varied as, as a receiver to running back to linebacker this season to strong safety. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I've learned a lot from all three.
Sure. Part of that has to do with your physical maturity. You're a little bit bigger than you were 2 years ago, and you've kind of grown into the role now where you're a pretty good linebacker. Friday night we had some injuries that forced you into duty on offensive side of the ball. You're our third running back on the depth chart, primarily because you're a starter on defense, but you came over that side of the ball and rushed for 210 yards. What was your thought process when you knew it was your turn up?
Well, first when I saw our starting running back, Will, when he went down and he had an injury, it was a heartbreaker, but I knew that, we're the next guys up. And knowing that, the character that he brings and how well he runs the ball, I had to do the same. Mm-hmm. And, I knew that I would have to be on my A game, that I have to know my assignment mm-hmm. and where the cut is, where to block, all that. And I feel like, I did a really good job at doing
you
that.
did. You were very well prepared. You did a good job of doing your job. Marlo also is a really good student. I'm gonna let him. He wouldn't do this on his own, but share with the audience what your GPA is.
My GPA, it varied. Sophomore year, I ended it with a 3.9 GPA. Mm-hmm. Currently, it's a 4.02. Grades is a very, very, very important thing to me. I can't keep my grade GPA from. It has to be above 3.5. Mm-hmm. If I don't even like 3.5, it has to be around 3.7. Yeah. I'm comfortable around there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm proud of more than anything else from Marlo is not only is he an incredibly hard worker. You should see this kid in off season with the lifting and running and running track and doing the things to prepare. But he takes care of the business in the classroom and really going to pointing towards a bright future for him. And speaking of that, why don't you share with the audience what you would like to do after you graduate? What are your plans for the future?
My plans are just to play college football, of course, and study either petroleum or mechanical engineering.
Okay.
And I find that very, very interesting with all the, oil fields around here.
Sure. Any schools that you have in the back of your mind for that?
The number one school for engineering is the Naval Academy.
Sure.
They have a very beautiful program, football, mm-hmm. academics, everything.
Yeah.
And the Wyoming would be my second choice because they also have a very well engineering program.
Yeah, and your discipline as a student and your work ethic as an athlete would lead me to believe that you'd probably be very successful in both those places. That's great.
And Marlo, back in the old days, Tulsa University had a really stellar petroleum engineering. I mean, everybody went to TU for petroleum engineering. Let me ask you a final question here, Marlo. Excuse me. What are you going to take away from this experience of football this year? What are you just going to take away? It's kind of an open-ended question. What comes to mind?
When you're given an opportunity, take it and run with it. Once you have a time to show out and shine, you take every bit of chance you can and, do it well. And, if you're prepared for that moment, do it well.
That's a great lesson, and I appreciate you sharing that. And that doesn't end in high school football. It's when you're presented an opportunity in the professional life or in the corporate place, presented an opportunity, you just don't let it walk on down the hallway. You take advantage of it and move forward. Yes, Marlo Hughes, thank you for joining us as our Student Athlete of the Week here on Plainsmen Football. Wish you the best, Marlo. Congratulations on your great game last week, but thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. The supporting cast that Coach Steve Hayes has is rather impressive, and we've had the opportunity to meet some of the assistant coaches. And so let's take this opportunity to meet some of the assistant coaches and learn a little bit more about their interest and what they're all about.
I'm Kareem Sears. I coach defensive line and D ends. I am a special needs teacher at the high school. My favorite book is Slapstick by Kurt Vonnegut, and my most influential person would be my dad, because pretty much everything he's told me when I was younger has happened in my life.
My name is Jeremy Brashears. I'm a defensive line coach at the high school, where I will be teaching Algebra 1. My favorite book is The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. And the biggest influence in my life was the FFA organization, where many people taught me the leadership skills necessary to do the job that I do.
Hey, I'm Coach Dusty Quarles. I coach corners at Enid High School. I teach world history at Enid High School. Favorite book is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. Favorite movie, really anything with Clint Eastwood. I guess if I had to pick, I'd say Heartbreak Ridge. The people that have influenced me the most in my life are definitely my parents, Johnny and Wendy Quarles. They taught me all the core values I have today, how to be a man, how to lead, and appreciative to them every single day.
Certainly hope you enjoyed a little insight that we tried to provide you with the assistant coaches, and I keep calling them your supportive cast because they support you in really every aspect, Coach Hayes. Okay, we'll put the lights and the camera and everything on Coach Hayes. Your favorite book or your favorite movie?
You know, favorite book, it's going to be the Bible, written by an author, John Eldridge's Wild at Heart. Love that book. It's great. It's had a big impact on my life. Movies is a toss-up between Cinderella Man and just Tombstone. Tombstone's such a great guy movie. I love it. I love the lines in that movie. And my mentor in football is definitely Scott Phillips. I was my head football coach when I was at Plano East. He's one of the winningest coaches all time in the state of Texas. He taught me how to treat kids and the importance of discipline in a program and really why a man should be coaching. Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering that, Coach.
You bet.
And I think those are great questions that we need to take time every once in a while and just ask your neighbor at the office or whatever it is. You know, what's your favorite book, a movie, or the mentor, and so forth. So, very good. Okay. Well, again, one of the exciting segments of Plainsman football with Steve and Steve is called Chalk Talk, and that's coming up right now. Welcome to Chalk Talk, our segment here to a little bit more about, I guess, the inside part of the game, or what the coach is thinking, if you will. Our first topic for Chalk Talk is every once in a while, you don't want to hear this, but it happens.
Yeah.
You know, flags thrown, whistles blown, and then you hear that referee saying there's illegal man downfield or illegal player downfield. Yeah. And typically, that's a pass play, and so something happened. Explain to us what that is.
Yeah, the legal receiver or man downfield is based on a passing play. So it's anytime the offense throws a football, offensive lineman or somebody in an eligible number has to stay within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage when the ball is thrown. Or they're going to get penalized. Now, after the ball is thrown, they can go downfield and block for the receiver. But until then, they have to stay at the line of scrimmage. And it's a good rule because it prevents too many people being in the secondary and makes things kind of deceptive for the defense if you don't have that rule in place.
And you can see where the challenge is for a player who's really trying to block or do his role. He's not necessarily counting steps or counting yards. Yeah. He goes, oh, am I 2.5 yards or 3.5? So,
well, the real challenge now is so many runs are tagged with a pass, and so the offensive line is run blocking, but there's a possibility to throw the football, and so the pass has to be a quick pass or your linemen are downfield and you get called for it.
Exactly. Okay, Coach, and Chalk Talk segment, question number 2, talks about coming out after halftime, and you're setting the stage for the second half. What's the thought process of the play? And let's say that you're going to receive the ball. You know, going into halftime, you're coming out second half, you're going to get the ball. So how do you determine what play, which way you're going to run? You're going to run right? How do you go through that thought process?
You know, by the second half, you have a pretty good idea of strength of personnel and scheme-wise what the other team is doing. And so, you know, you want to have a positive drive to start that second half. And now you have knowledge as to what looks good. Whereas starting the game, you may see some things that you're not prepared for because they surprise you. Second half, you don't normally get surprised by that type of stuff. And so there's usually a lot more clarity as far as what you can call and what will work. Typically, my first play the second half is going to be something that's going to be a positive yardage play. I want to have a 2nd and 5. on the second play of the second half when I'm on offense. I don't usually try a trick play or a big play to start the half, just because I know what they're doing and I know I can have a positive play. Real important to score in that first drive.
And that's our Chalk Talk segment for this week, and we appreciate you joining us for that. I'd like to remind you that if you have a question for Coach Hayes in regard to a particular play or a rule or anything that has to do that we can address here in the Chalk Talk segment, send an email to asksteve, ASKSTEVE @enid.org, and we'll address that during Chalk Talk. So, very good. We'll do that. Okay, it's time now for us to take a little time out. And in this time out, we get the opportunity to meet more Enid Plainsmen team players.
Where'd he go?
J.D. Rupert, number 23, running back, class of 2022.
My name is C.J. Bennett. I'm number 83. I play defensive end, class of 2020.
Austin Whitehead, number 73, offensive line, class of 2018.
Mason Scrivener, number 2, quarterback, class of 2019.
My name is Dylan Gaw. I'm number 70. I'm a defensive end and I'm a sophomore.
Caleb Chambers, 81, wide receiver, class of 2018.
Hope you're enjoying the Coaches Show with Steve and Steve this week. We're just excited about to have the Enid Plainsmen kicked off the 2017 season with the big win over Guthrie, 34-23. Coach, I know since you have arrived in Enid, Oklahoma, you've been all about leaving a legacy. You've been all about character, and I think that was one of our first connections, is that I was just so impressed with one of the first times of meeting and visiting with you, as your emphasis not so much on the X's and O's, but it was on character development, knowing that one day they're not going to play high school football, and then they've got to have the character to continue to succeed.
Yep.
And I've always appreciate your emphasis on core values. And you've used the term mental toughness a couple times during the show today, because it seemed to show up last Friday night when you played Guthrie.
Yes, sir, it did.
Talk to us a little bit about the core value, mental toughness.
You know, our core values are demonstrated by the acronym MDAL, IMDAL. Each one stands for a character quality or core value we want our kids to have as a player, we want to have as a team. Last week we talked about integrity, the I in MDAL, and this week we're studying mental toughness, which we really have emphasized all off-season. The kids are very familiar with this idea because we emphasize it every day. Mental toughness to me is learning how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Our saying for our kids are comfortable being uncomfortable, tough players win. And in our off season this year, we talked about building a house on Payne Island, just learning how to live there. And really in life,
what was the name of the island? Excuse me.
Payne Island.
Payne Island.
Payne Island. Building a house on Payne Island. And you know, and in life, really the guy that succeeds is the guy that doesn't give up. That no matter what the obstacle, no matter how hard it is, I'm going to persevere and I'm going to push through the end. A lot of times that's the guy that ends up being successful, which trumps talent, which trumps predetermined gifts and intelligence, things like that. It's the person that doesn't give up. It's this idea of grit. And we want our kids in the classroom, when their studies get tough, to have some grit. When it gets tough on the field, to have some grit. And in life, when things get tough, whether it be at the house with the kids and the wife or whatever, to not quit, but to forge and push through and take care of business. I think that's a big part of being a good man and a successful man.
And I think when you see some of the examples of mental toughness in a ball game, you can play that part of the tape over and over and just remind mental toughness. Here's an example. Watch this.
Oh yeah, yeah,
and, that's gonna be exciting
or when you fail, the lack of it. No doubt, it's such an important quality.
Okay. Well, we want to say special thanks to our friends at On Deck for their help with our studio design this year. Gary and Jeff Williams, big fans of Plainsman football, and they're always watching the show, but we want to thank them. And Ponca City, the Wildcats are coming up next week, and or the next game, I should say. And so we'll talk about the Wildcats right after this timeout. In our final segment, we want to talk about the Ponca City Wildcats, which is next up for the Enid Plainsmen. Last week, Ponca lost to Edmond Memorial by a score of 28-7. Coach, what do you know about Ponca City, and what's the game plan that you can share with us?
Ponca City's strength on defense is the fact that they're very multiple. They're going to be in an odd front, but they do a lot of different things with the guys behind the three-down linemen that'll keep us on our toes. It'll be a little bit more complex than Guthrie was. Guthrie was pretty straightforward, and so we've got some learning to do this week in preparation for that part of the game. Offensively, they're multiple. Their quarterback is pretty competitive, not a bad player. They have one receiver that's pretty gifted, and so we'll have to make sure that we know where that kid's at all times and defend him well. And they're pretty balanced between running and throwing. You're going to see probably 50-50 on them, which means probably more passing maybe than we saw this last week against Guthrie, which was much more of a run team. They were probably 80-20 run pass. They had a competitive game against Edmond Memorial. Memorial was probably a little bigger and more physical than they were, which is going to be the case for a lot of teams in Memorial play. They're famous for having big offensive linemen. Sure. And so it was a close game at halftime. I think it was 14-7 at half, and then they ended up losing 28-7 overall. And so they're going to be hungry for a win in this big rivalry game.
So, Coach, in your preparation this week, or with really any team that you're familiar with, I mean, they're always on the schedule. Is there a comfortableness, if I can use that word, or you can't be too comfortable even though you're very familiar with their program, right?
I think the thing that makes the Ponca game a good game for us is it's a rivalry game, and so you can throw records and talent out the window. You're going to get great effort from both sides of the football, and you're going to have a competitive, exciting game. Last year we were fortunate. We kind of jumped on top of them early, and it was probably a more lopsided win than they normally are. This year I anticipate a tough ball game. We're going to have to come ready to play.
Okay. Coach, clock is almost to expire. We won't have to go. Thanks for being here today. I always enjoy visiting with Coach Steve Hayes.
Thank you.
Again, congratulations on the big 34-23 win over Guthrie. And we look forward to a win over Ponca City that's coming up here in the next few days. Again, special thanks to you for watching us on Plainsman Football 2017 with Steve and Steve. Special thanks to Dane, Penn, and AJ for their work behind the scenes to make this all happen. Everybody, have a great week, and until next time, make it a great day.
Thank you for watching Enid Plainsman Football with Steve and Steve on ETN.
Flat.